The title of this story is a loser transmigrates into another world as a stronger SSS rank healer. Our story begins in the room of our protagonist. Today is his birthday, with video game posters covering his walls and a cake placed on the table. He plays the Happy Birthday song using his phone. Afterwards, he begins to slice the cake. He takes a bite, and immediately, the awful taste shows on his face. Angry, he throws the cake into the trash, thinking that the 29 yuan he spent was wasted, wishing he had used it on gacha instead. Then he looks at his phone, staring at a selfie post where he pretended to thank his so-called friend for the birthday cake. As he stares at the screen, he thinks about how he wishes there was someone who truly cared for him. In his deep loneliness, he leans hard against the chair, causing it to tip and making him lose balance. He falls onto the floor, sad, thinking he would already be happy if someone gave him even a simple, "get well soon," whenever he got sick. But suddenly he feels dizzy, losing balance because of his fever, and he thinks how sad it is that no one is around to help him with something so simple. Suddenly, he hears a strange sound, and the voice of a terrified man begging for help. A gigantic mouth filled with sharp teeth suddenly appears, its sheer size freezing him in fear. At that moment, a young woman with dark hair tied in a ponytail enters the scene. Our main character suddenly becomes a white-haired young man being attacked by the creature, but a powerful red lightning bolt strikes the monster. Wrapped in overwhelming red energy, the monster is slowly sucked in until its hand completely disappears. Shocked, our protagonist watches what is happening, wondering if he has transmigrated. Suddenly, a woman with large bouncing cocomelons arrives behind him, calling out his name. Furious, she yells at him, then lands a heavy punch, scolding him for being reckless in the interdimensional space. With the sheer force of the hit, he flies into the snow as the girl demands to know if he has a death wish. Lying on the ground, injured, he slowly realizes the full truth. His new name is Jiang Xiao. It suddenly hits him. It's just like the cliché stories. He has been brought to another world. This new world is called the Star Martial Continent, a land filled with dazzling azure energy. The biggest difference here is the existence of portals connecting to other dimensions full of wondrous creatures. Aside from the monsters, there is also a mysterious force called Star Force that flows from the portals. Because of this, some fortunate people are able to see and sense this power. They are called the Awakened. The potential of an Awakened is measured by the number of star slots they possess on their map, and the body our protagonist currently inhabits belongs to Jiang Xiao, an Awakened with a pitiful 9 star slots. He is once again called by Han Zhongzu, asking him how long he plans to sit there in the snow. He doesn't answer right away. This is his stepsister, a genius with 30 star slots, practically considered heaven's chosen. His sister helps him up from the snow, complaining about the cold, when suddenly another figure approaches them. A woman's voice shouts that she has finally found them. The newcomer runs toward them, asking if Shushu is alright, hugging her friend tightly. Our protagonist remembers that she is Sha Yan, a young woman with 28 star slots. Sha Yan walks over to him and teasingly calls him, Little Pai Pai. She also scolds him for running around in the interdimensional space, forcing him to apologize in embarrassment. Sha Yan tells him how worried his sister was, and he promises it won't happen again. He understands that his sister brought him here to train, because the original owner of the body became arrogant after awakening. On a hunting mission, he got lost and tried to escape from 2 monsters, but was saved by Han Zhongzu. But suddenly, our protagonist freezes as he realizes something is wrong. He remembers that only one of the 2 monsters was killed by his sister. In an instant, the second white monster appears before the group, furiously attacking them. Terrified, our protagonist shouts for everyone to be careful. His sister pulls him down to the ground to dodge, and they fall, with her arms wrapped around his head. This makes him blush furiously, unable to believe how close his face is to her cocomelons. His sister then unleashes her ability, sharp claws of energy extending as she attacks. With a powerful strike she calls Desolate Wind, she charges at the monster. But she immediately calls out her friend's name, Sha Yan, for help in the fight. Smiling, Sha Yan replies that she got the message. She activates her scorching flame ability, and her sword erupts in fire. With all her might, she swings the massive fire-clad blade toward the creature. The attack lands directly on the white monster, making it cry out in pain. But even so, the fire still fails to pierce its thick hide. Nevertheless, the impact is strong enough to send Sha Yan flying. She crashes into the snow, slightly surprised that the monster wasn't wounded immediately. With a mocking grin, she comments that the monster's skin is thick and its level is high. The white monster, smoke billowing from its mouth, glares at her with intense fury. But she remains unfazed, taunting it, saying it can show off its courage all it wants. At that moment, her weapon flares with a brilliant crimson energy, showcasing its power. With a mighty strike, Sha Yan charges at the monster again, and finally, she manages to wound it, causing its blood to spill. From the force of the strike, the monster crashed to the ground, completely defeated and unable to fight back. Our protagonist watched his sister in awe, impressed that the two of them had taken down the creature in just 2 attacks. His face flushed red as his cheek pressed against his sister's chest, marveling that this was the power of an awakened. The brown-haired girl let out a sigh after the intense battle, then turned to her friend to celebrate, saying their teamwork was perfect. But to her shock, she saw that our protagonist was still in his sister's arms, and out of jealousy she pulled them apart, telling them that the sibling moment had gone on long enough. She warned that the scent of blood would attract more monsters, so they needed to collect the star beads and leave immediately. Our protagonist then remembered the star beads inside the monsters that contained their abilities, realizing that the skills used in battle came from absorbing these beads. The brown-haired girl mockingly called him an academic failure and beckoned him over so she could teach him how to examine monsters, otherwise he'd drag his sister down in their future exams. Holding a blue bead, she explained that no matter what type of monster it was, this thing was always in the same place. He asked if it was in the brain, and she confirmed, saying maybe he wasn't completely hopeless yet. She further explained that the skulls of Snow Qilin were very tough and required sharp tools, and that it was necessary to find the right angle to extract the star beads. While preparing the knife, she told him to find the proper angle and force it open. With a hard stab, she plunged the knife into the monster, smiling as blood splattered. Slowly, she pried it open and shoved her hand inside, rummaging through its innards, but found nothing and regretfully noted that this Snow Qilin didn't have a bead. She then handed the knife to our protagonist and ordered him to practice on another monster. He thought to himself that in his 25 years of life, he had never even killed a fish, but now he had to do this. Even so, he remembered how dangerous this world was and how he almost died upon arriving, so with full determination he prepared himself, knowing he wouldn't survive if he couldn't handle this task. The girl explained that neither of the 2 Snow Qilin had star beads and that such items were rare, requiring both talent and luck to find. Our protagonist covered his mouth, nauseated, but said he understood the lesson. His sister asked if he was all right, noticing that he seemed to have suddenly matured. She wondered if his change was because of the slap she had given him earlier. She then called him Xiao Pai, and he immediately turned to her with a serious expression. His sister handed him a star bead and said it came from a white ghost shaman, telling him to absorb it. Our protagonist was captivated by the intense glow of the blue star bead in his sister's hand and thought that with his meager slots, he would only ever be able to have the most basic techniques in his lifetime. He decided not to waste any time and began absorbing the energy from the star bead. His body was enveloped in a strong blue energy as he lifted the bead. Suddenly, he was transported to a strange place, confused about where he was. A window screen appeared showing his information, and he wondered if this was the inner star chart vision. He realized he was inside his own consciousness and noticed that perhaps he had more than one star map. Soon after, a detection message appeared before him as it analyzed the situation, showing on the window screen that there were 2 techniques within the bead, asking if he wanted to combine and absorb them. He was shocked that he could merge 2 techniques into a single star slot, and without hesitation, he accepted the fusion since it was an ability like no other. Upon his decision, the star bead shattered into countless fragments and its energy burst forth. In reality, his sister asked if he had obtained any new star techniques, but before he could answer, Sha Yan warned that danger was approaching. The group prepared again as their companion explained that a hunting squad was drawing near. At that very moment, a new group in uniform arrived, and one member reported that another team had already cracked open the Qilin skulls. Another member recalled passing by a destroyed Qilin nest and asked if it was the same group. Their captain cursed their bad luck for not finding any young Qilin or star beads and worried about the family head. With a malicious grin, their leader told the squad to continue searching the white ghost shaman Cobb, adding that if they encountered another group, they would simply take their star beads. As they moved away, our protagonist group remained hidden behind a large boulder, quietly observing the other team's movements. After examining the opposing group and defeating the monsters, they continued to leave, leaving footprints behind in the soft snow. Meanwhile, our protagonist group breathed a sigh of relief once the others were gone. Curious, our protagonist asked why the other group wanted to steal the white ghost shamans and their bids. Sia explained that white ghost shamans were extremely rare compared to ordinary white ghosts, and in an entire clan of white ghosts, only one could become a shaman. Furthermore, she revealed that a shaman's bid contained healing abilities, the rarest of all. A regular white ghost star bid could be sold for no less than 500 to 800, but a white ghost shaman star bid was worth 200,000. Our protagonist was stunned upon learning the price of the bids, and his sister warned him to be careful not only against monsters but also against people within the interdimensional space, because awakened individuals possessed rounding beads and their star force was even stronger than that of monsters. It was then he realized that he might also be attacked by fellow humans, driven purely by the desire for power. Deeply disheartened, he understood why they were always hiding, unable to believe he had ended up in such a ruthless place. Suddenly, his sister smacked him on the head and said they needed to leave. She also reminded him that the sun was setting, and since both he and Kian's star force were low, they had to return to base. They began walking back, once again leaving their footprints in the snowy path. As they moved through the frozen landscape, snow continued to fall on the three awakened. The elder sister noticed that the young man was unusually quiet and thought it might be because he hadn't obtained a new technique. She tried to encourage him, telling him it was fine if he didn't get a star technique and not to carry the burden too heavily. But our protagonist smiled and explained that he was only shocked at how brutal this world truly was. They pressed on, walking along the mountainside despite the relentless snowstorm. Then suddenly, something stirred beneath the snow in a strange and eerie way, and moments later, the face of a white gull with sharp teeth emerged right before them. To their horror, an entire horde of white gulls appeared, surrounding them from all directions. The monsters glared at them, eyes gleaming with hostility and expressions filled with rage. At that moment, the three prepared themselves to face the enemies closing in through the snow. Sia was shocked to count 16 white ghosts, wondering where such a number had come from, while her sister was equally puzzled, as these creatures usually appeared alone and never traveled in groups. Sia declared that there must be a shaman leading this clan. Our protagonist, surprised, asked if white ghost shamans weren't supposed to be extremely rare, and Sia agreed, adding that it was not normal for monsters to organize large-scale attacks against humans. In the very next instant, the entire horde charged to begin their assault. One white ghost roared fiercely, baring its sharp fangs to intimidate them. Without wasting a moment, Sia drew her sword, engulfed in flames. She unleashed her scorching flame technique, releasing a powerful fiery strike against the monsters, hitting one directly with tremendous force. Meanwhile, her sister shielded her and used her desolate wind technique to attack the horde, quickly preparing her shattered void as well, gathering crimson energy in her hand. Her devastating attack struck the monsters before them, creating a massive explosion of energy. But one monster slipped past their defense and charged directly at our protagonist, leaping with claws extended to strike the defenseless youth. At that critical moment, the elder sister looked at him with unwavering determination. Without hesitation, she sacrificed herself, leaping in front of her brother to take the fatal blow. The monster's claws tore into her back, gravely wounding her in front of everyone. The impact hurled them both through the snow, sending them tumbling across the frozen ground. Their friend witnessed everything and screamed in terror, calling out Shushu's name. Our protagonist fell into the snow, his unconscious sister lying before him, not knowing what to do as he watched blood spread across the whiteness. Stunned and panicked, he desperately cried out her name. But then he remembered the new star technique he had obtained, the blessing. Without hesitation, he used the ability on his sister, and her body was enveloped in a warm, radiant light. The young woman stirred, dazed and bewildered, wondering what the strange sensation was. She felt her body grow light, as if she were floating in an ocean filled with star force. The wound on her back began to glow and rapidly healed under the new ability's power. Her whole body flushed with warmth, like bathing in a soothing hot spring. Her eyes widened in astonishment at the unfamiliar feeling until her face turned red, and she whispered that her entire body felt unbearably hot. While still lying down, the young woman felt an overwhelming heat surging through her body, causing her to make strange expressions under the influence of the healing spell. Our protagonist was bewildered, wondering what was happening to her, but as his attention remained fixed on her, several giant creatures began approaching them. In an instant, 3 monsters attacked simultaneously. The girl's eyes glowed with azure energy, and her expression suddenly turned deadly serious. She immediately stood up, her body enveloped in a faint blue aura. Our protagonist was utterly astonished, witnessing the immense power radiating from his sister. She then summoned her star map, which gleamed with a golden light. Extending her hand, she began gathering an enormous amount of crimson energy for her attack. From there, a powerful surge of energy erupted and struck one of the white Killen directly. She remained standing, her face cold and composed after unleashing the devastating strike. The ability detonated, producing a terrifying explosion that instantly annihilated the monster. A system window appeared, notifying her that she had gained 1 skill point from slaying the creature. Shocked, our protagonist wondered what this new feature meant. Moments later, their friend arrived running, relieved to see Zuzu safe. The elder sister, energy already building up in her hand, quickly reminded her friend to focus on the enemy. In a flash, flames swelled from her palm. She unleashed her explosive flame, striking one of the white monsters directly. The sheer force of the impact sent the beast flying, crashing into the snow in agony. The elder sister then warned, full of concern, that their strength would not last long, and they had to prioritize killing the shaman. In the midst of the horde, the shaman emerged, holding a staff while surrounded by other monsters. It bared its sharp fangs, ready to continue the assault, and began using its blessing ability to aid its allies. A wounded monster was enveloped in a bluish aura, and its injuries rapidly healed. Within moments, the creature had fully recovered thanks to the shaman's healing magic. Our protagonist realized that the shaman was nullifying all the damage dealt to its companions, and he immediately shouted to his sister to use Savage Wind to launch him into the air. Without hesitation, the young woman raised her hand and unleashed a powerful gust. The fierce wind wrapped around our protagonist's body and propelled him skyward. Now airborne, he desperately scanned the battlefield for the shaman. His eyes locked onto the ground below, and at last, he spotted the shaman along with its 2 guards in the snow. He shouted that he had found it, declaring its location to be 200 meters away. His sister responded that she received the information, then firmly planted her feet on the snowy ground, preparing to move. With a serious expression, she dashed at full speed toward the direction indicated by her brother. Our protagonist followed closely behind, determined to assist in the joint assault. Meanwhile, their friend also charged forward with sword in hand. Shouting fiercely as she attacked, Xia Yan's entire body became engulfed in blazing flames. She unleashed her fiery power, the heat so intense that the shaman immediately sensed it. However, her attack merely passed through the enemy, and Xia shouted in alarm that it was only a decoy. At that exact moment, our protagonist leapt toward the true target, yelling that the real shaman was right in front of him. The shaman turned to face him with a calm expression, showing no trace of fear. Instantly, the monster and its two guards lunged at him in a coordinated strike. Seeing the oncoming assault, the two young women panicked and cried out his name in unison. At that very moment, our protagonist braced himself to defend against the ferocious attack of the beasts. They saw the body of our protagonist split apart, but he instantly used a skill called Dissipate. Sia was shocked at what she witnessed, realizing that he had just used the very same technique he absorbed from the White Ghost Shaman. His sister was equally bewildered, unable to understand how such a thing was possible. She distinctly remembered that the technique her brother had absorbed was clearly a buff spell, not a dispel magic like what he had just used against the monster. With a smirk, our protagonist mocked the shaman, telling it not to get too cocky. Leaping from behind, he added, "Did you really think you're the only one who can play tricks?" And with that, he finished off the monster, earning 1 point and a new ability in Dagger Mastery. The shaman's body finally collapsed into the snow, while its remaining guard froze in place, staring. Standing firm, our protagonist turned toward the last guard, ready to end the battle. But to his surprise, the beast, snarling and baring its teeth, suddenly spun around and fled. Letting out a long breath, he muttered that it was a close call. Just then, his companions arrived and anxiously asked if he was all right. His sister called him out, insisting that he owed them an explanation. Embarrassed, he averted his gaze, unsure of what to say. Instead, he suggested they talk about it once they were somewhere safe. Hours passed, and they lit a fire to ward off the night's bitter cold. Sitting around the flames, the atmosphere felt unusually heavy. His sister finally spoke, pointing out that this meant he had a dual-star ability, with one of them being medic type. Puzzled, he wondered why she reacted that way and if she wasn't supposed to be happy for him. Then Sia asked if he even understood what it meant to be an awakened medic type. She explained that those who could absorb techniques had a much higher chance of acquiring powerful abilities, but combat types like him normally had no affinity for such skills. She added that out of every 100 awakened, only one turned out to be a healer. Excited, he asked, "Isn't that a good thing? That means I'm valuable, right?" But his sister responded seriously, saying he still didn't grasp the true weight of it. She showed him a badge, explaining that a standard team required 4 members, and every team desperately wanted a medic. Even with just a single healing skill, they determined the durability and survival of the entire group. Stunned, he finally realized the significance of his new role. Yet when he saw the worry in their eyes, he reassured them that since his aptitude was low, he wouldn't become a target. Still, he admitted that because he was a rare type, he might be forced into dangerous missions. His sister nodded in agreement. She then declared that she would make sure he enrolled in school to become a doctor or healer in a hospital, leaving him utterly speechless. Troubled, he thought to himself that he had imagined walking the path of a god, only to end up on the road toward working in a hospital. Sia couldn't help but laugh, teasing that his sister was being way too overprotective. His sister lowered her head, saying she understood what her friend meant, but her hesitation remained. Silence fell over the group as our protagonist quietly observed his sister, sensing the depth of her worry, and a knot of unease tightened in his chest. To break the tension, he reminded them that he was only 16, and Sia agreed that the future was still far ahead. Pulling her friend closer, Sia said they should count the spoils from the hunt instead. She then reminded him to get some rest since training would continue the next day. For the first time, our protagonist smiled sincerely, touched by how it felt to be cared for. The night passed quietly on the snowy mountain, until a strange noise suddenly shattered the calm. Out of nowhere, a gaping maw lined with razor-sharp teeth emerged, a sign that the danger wasn't over yet. Instantly, our protagonist positioned himself at the front of the camp. Sia called out, telling him not to charge recklessly and to use his wits. After all, he was smarter than the beast. The monstrous creature stood before him, covered in white fur, growling with fury. Sia promised that if he managed to endure for 30 seconds, she would reward him with hot tea. With a firm expression, he tightened his grip on his weapon and braced himself for battle. A giant monster roared right in front of our protagonist. At that very moment, it lunged with its razor-sharp claws, but he didn't flinch. With swift movement, he dodged the fierce strike, though the sheer impact left a stinging cut across his cheek. The massive beast wasted no time and prepared for another assault. In the next instant, it charged forward with astonishing speed. Our protagonist braced himself and blocked the vicious attack with his arms. Suddenly, a surge of azure energy burst out from him as the two girls watched anxiously from a distance. Meanwhile, the friend asked his sister if she was still upset with the boy for absorbing the pearl. She admitted she was worried, since he only had 9-star slots. The friend nodded in understanding, recognizing the desire to fill those slots with rare skills, but warned that there were always trade-offs. His sister continued, explaining that for the longest time, their most common enemies were the white ghosts. Just like them, their companion would have to accept a new star ability in order to fight back. At that moment, a system window appeared, displaying the details of a new technique called Azure Flash. Without hesitation, he unleashed it against the monster. The force of the ability pushed him slightly backward, but he planted his feet firmly into the ground. He recalled that he had just absorbed a star pearl from the white ghost, and that he still had another pearl hidden from the monster's sight. Curious, he checked the system requirements to upgrade his new ability. The panel explained that techniques could be enhanced with points and additional star pearls. He saw that he had 2 skill points left to use. Excited, he carefully reviewed his options to strengthen himself right away. He remembered that in this world, most people's skills were fixed, but his had the potential to grow infinitely. A screen displayed his abilities, including the newly gained Azure Flash and Resistance. He calculated that moving from bronze to silver would require 10 bronze pearls. Determined, he immediately absorbed the power of the extra pearl. A confirmation message popped up, showing his star power had risen. Both his Azure Flash and Resistance reached the peak of bronze class, then advanced together into silver class, boosting his strength dramatically. Back in the fight, the monster roared again and lunged with its claws. Behind him, his star chart glowed intensely, and his eyes shone a bright azure as he focused all his energy on the battle. His sister shouted, asking if he had gone mad, urging him to dodge. But instead, he clenched his fist tighter, radiating sheer determination. He charged forward, his hand enveloped in a brilliant azure aura, and unleashed a devastating strike at the beast. His energy cut across the snowy field, leaving behind a trail of destruction. The force sent the monster flying, crashing into the snow but still glaring back at him with terrifying resolve. Just then, Sia hurled her flaming sword to finish it off. The blazing weapon struck with overwhelming force, and the monster was finally defeated, collapsing lifelessly into the snow. From afar, his sister called out in concern, rushing over and demanding to see his star chart, her tone sharp with suspicion. He revealed it, showing 2 radiant stars at its center. With a calm smile, he told them that he trusted them enough to share his secret. He admitted that his power might be shocking, but he believed in them because they were on the same side. Sia looked guilty and turned her gaze away, unable to respond. His sister, however, stared at him seriously, silently processing everything she had just learned. To everyone's shock, she suddenly lowered her head and apologized to him, sorrow filling her eyes. Then, with a heavy voice, she admitted that she too had been hiding something very important from him. Our protagonist was completely bewildered by his sister's sudden apology. It was then that she revealed the Void Shutter ability had originally been left behind by their parents for him. He asked if that was the same power that devoured monsters, and quickly assured her there was no need to apologize. They were both children of their parents, so it didn't matter who had been given the inheritance. He added that her talent far surpassed his own anyway, and it was likely he wouldn't have been able to absorb such a technique in the first place. But his sister countered, saying that in just the past 2 days, he had already absorbed 2 powerful star pearls, and since this was a gold-quality skill, surely he could have managed it too. Her eyes were filled with sadness as she spoke. He thought to himself that she looked so mature, but in truth she seemed even more confused than he had been before his rebirth. He ended by saying she was giving him far too much credit. His humble words took her by surprise. He explained that it was one star power level that determined what quality of abilities could be absorbed. What's more, even if he had acquired the Void Breaker, he wouldn't have been able to use it. He admitted that he was at the very lowest rank, and even casting Asher Flash had drained nearly half of his energy. If he were to use Void Breaker, he'd only end up useless and wasting energy. The two girls listened closely to his reasoning, and it seemed they finally understood his point. He realized that because this body had been so weak originally, his sister had been forced to become strong to protect him. Deeply moved by his insight, she called out his name, tears welling in her eyes. But then, puffing up with pride, he suddenly boasted that clearly, he was the brains of the operation, only to be called an idiot by both girls. Sia grabbed him by the collar and praised him for finally maturing, then asked whether his star skills had any limit in how far they could rise. He answered that his growth came from pearls and training, and so far he had felt no limit, only that he lacked strength. That was when Sia understood that both skills and star power needed to be trained hand in hand. She sighed, wishing she could just use her money to immediately level up his abilities. But then her gaze hardened, clearly about to say something important. She warned him that his talent must never be exposed, and once he entered school, he would need a squad. Quietly listening, he suggested that he simply join their squad right away. Both girls froze in shock, falling silent. Confused, he wondered what he had said wrong. The two of them kept staring, processing the idea. Suddenly, Sia seemed to realize something and said she had forgotten one option. Later that night, the group set up camp beneath the bright stars, surrounded by snow. Holding a warm cup in her hands, Sia explained that his talent was both a gift and a problem. Around the fire, she said that because of his abilities, he was destined for a great fate. He and his sister listened quietly as she suggested that he skip the early years and join their squad directly in the final year. He was stunned by the unexpected proposal. She explained that this way, they could train him properly at the university, and with his help, their missions would be far safer. With their abilities, protecting him until graduation would be no problem. As for the high-quality skills, they could simply claim that they had been left behind by his parents. His sister agreed, adding that they should first raise the quality of his blessing skill to silver rank. Sia promised to spend 2 million on star pearls to guarantee the upgrade. Inside, he was filled with anticipation. Did this mean he could officially join their group? Was the decision already set? Smiling, he celebrated at the thought that from this day on, he would be an official member of their squad. But his joy was immediately cut short when Sia said things weren't that simple. She revealed the major problem with the plan. Their squad was already full. His eyes widened in shock, utterly stunned by the revelation, unable to grasp what was happening. Our protagonist shouted in disbelief, "Are you serious? After everything, your team is already full." Sia explained that there was a man in their squad who constantly chased after her sister, a certain Gao Junwei. He was undeniably strong, a close combat awakened, but his personality was terrible, selfish and arrogant. During one mission in another dimension, one of their companions almost died because of the chaos he caused. She went on to explain that both he and Xu Xiao came from powerful families, and because of their pride, neither was willing to back down. In the end, she and the protagonist's sister became the victims of their conflict, and the entire team almost collapsed. Sia said that the protagonist's strength could help rebalance their squad. And because he was a rare healer, he was more than qualified to replace one of the problematic members. In a lighter tone, she even revealed that her original plan was to leave the team together with Zuzu. But leaving came at too high a price. It was nearly impossible to find two other strong allies within the academy. As the snow fell gently around them, the group's serious conversation continued by the warmth of the fire. Sia explained that the team had been training together for 2 years, and with the exams approaching, no one wanted to disrupt the status quo. She clarified that she was talking about high-level people, not ordinary squads. She added that because she and Xu Xiao were both so strong, countless weaker students wanted to join them. But if they chose to leave, they would have to endure the wrath of both their families and the academy due to the rankings. She then admitted that she had been blocking Gao Junwei for a year now, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep it up. Firmly, she said that no matter the reason, they could no longer work with that man. That was why she had kept the squad intact, so that the protagonist could step in and deliver the surprise that would finally drive their rival out. The protagonist listened silently, his expression growing serious as he understood the enormous opportunity before him. Sia assured him that she would handle everything at the academy so that he could skip directly to the final year without issue. The fire continued to crackle as the group faced a critical decision. The siblings sat in thought, while their friend waited for an answer. His sister's face showed concern at the pressure being placed on him. She stood and told him that it was fine, that he didn't need to worry so much. Sia agreed, saying he was only beginning to mature and didn't need to rush. But the protagonist firmly declared that he wanted to try, not only for them but also for his own survival. His sister was stunned by the determination and maturity he now showed. With full conviction, he announced that he would do it, that he wanted to join their squad. Sia was deeply moved, calling out his name as pride welled in her chest. 7 days passed, and the land remained shrouded in snow. On the ground lay a bloodied creature, its white fur stained crimson. The protagonist stood before it, as a system notification appeared, declaring his dagger mastery had increased. A confident smile spread across his face. At last, he had managed to take down a white ghost alone and level up. From a distance, Sia watched, admiration clear in her eyes. Shivering, she teased him, asking if he could use his star power to warm her up. A bit embarrassed, he explained that his skill was meant for healing, not for heat. Still, he cast a blessing on her, and she was immediately enveloped in a warm golden aura. Delight and comfort lit up her expression as she basked in the soothing warmth. Meanwhile, the protagonist and his sister stood side by side, both unable to believe what they were witnessing. His sister reminded him that there was only 1 week left before classes began, and they needed to leave soon. He raised his hand, signaling his understanding, ready for whatever came next. But suddenly, a massive surge of blue energy streaked across the sky and exploded nearby, shaking the ground violently and startling them all. His sister's eyes widened in shock as she asked what that was. The protagonist immediately shouted that it was a flare, someone was calling for help, and warned everyone to be cautious. With a serious gaze, he asked if they should head toward the signal. But his sister stopped him, explaining that the flare was meant for the guardian team of the area. Her voice was stern as she told him it was a warning of danger, and it would be wiser for them to leave. Meanwhile, a group of explorers was running in panic, desperately trying to escape from a herd of massive white monsters. Among them, one man clutched something tightly in his arms as he fled for his life. The older sister shouted for everyone to take cover, warning that danger was rushing straight toward them. At the same moment, one of the explorers told his captain that they could no longer escape the monsters. Another member began to panic, crying out that they would all die before the guardians even arrived. Their leader, tense and desperate, prepared a fire skill, a small bowl of energy forming at his fingertips. He hurled a blazing burst of flame, but it struck his own comrade instead. Shocked, the man who was hit screamed in confusion, calling out to his captain, unable to understand what had just happened. But the captain only sneered, declaring that he would report his subordinate's death as a heroic sacrifice in battle. The unfortunate man was left behind, surrounded by the enraged herd of white ghosts. He screamed in terror and despair, reaching out his hand as he watched his former companions abandon him to his cruel fate. Slowly, the hulking beasts with snowy fur closed in on him. Meanwhile, the protagonist group watched from afar, hidden behind a large boulder. The protagonist's eyes widened at the sight of so many creatures, muttering that it looked like a parade of ghosts. His older sister recognized the men and said angrily that they were the same group they had seen earlier. The explorers. Captain clutched the white ghost shaman Yang Lang, admitting that it was the cause of all this chaos. Hearing this, the protagonist immediately asked his sister what they should do. The girl told him to wait, explaining that she suspected there were two shaman clans in the area. Suddenly, two shamans in crimson cloaks appeared, sliding down the snowy mountain. That was when the sister realized they needed star pearls from the white shamans. She declared that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity they could not let slip away. In that instant, she shouted, calling for their comrade Xia Yan to act. Xia Yan leapt swiftly, launching a sneak attack on one of the shaman monsters. But instead of striking true, his blade cut only into the arm of a white ghost. At the same time, the shaman unleashed an azure flash, its powerful strike slamming into Xia and hurling her into a tree. She cried out in pain from the brutal impact. Seeing Xia's suffering, the protagonist screamed in fear and desperation. Without hesitation, he crushed a crimson crystal in his hand, activating a skill. He invoked his blessing, and a surge of red energy flew into his wounded ally. Xia's entire body glowed crimson, and a strange moan escaped her lips as the healing power washed over her. Her face flushed, filled with pure ecstasy, as she exclaimed how amazing the sensation was. But another monster seized the moment, charging at her while she was distracted. Yet she showed no fear. Instead, she smiled brightly and welcomed the beast into battle. She rushed forward to meet it head-on, her blazing sword carving fiery trails across the snow. The protagonist was stunned, blurting out that she had gone mad, while his sister complained that it was only a waste of energy. With a wry smile, the protagonist thought that perhaps his blessing had worked a little too well on her. His sister, however, spoke firmly, saying that having a healer in the group was making Xia Yan far too reckless and careless. Because of this, she insisted that they could not rely on him. She resolved to lure the ghost shaman herself and asked her younger brother to guard her back as they prepared for the next move. Suddenly, one of the white beasts let out a roar and charged straight at the protagonist. Its sharp fangs nearly lunged at his face, but he quickly activated his decoy skill. Now face to face with the creature, he suddenly reappeared behind it, startling the monster as he prepared to strike. With a swift motion, he drove his sword into the creature's head with all his strength. Afterward, he stood behind the beast, his eyes flashing as a system notification appeared. He had gained another skill point. The protagonist wondered why he kept receiving rewards even when his companions were the ones doing most of the killing. Meanwhile, Xia, still shivering from the cold, asked him to use his blessing again to warm her up. But he shouted back in frustration that he wasn't a vending machine and that his star power was nearly depleted. At that moment, one of the shaman creatures activated a skill that boosted its speed. The white ghost immediately began fleeing down the icy mountain at an incredible pace. Seeing it escape, the young man shouted desperately that they had to stop it. Xia, gripping her flaming sword, declared that it wouldn't get away from her. But as she rushed forward, she tripped on a rock and fell face first into the snow. The protagonist's jaw dropped at the sight. His older sister complained that she had almost hit the monster with her wild wind. The shaman continued sprinting, moving farther and faster with every second. This made the protagonist start thinking of a way to slow the creature down. He remembered what his sister had said, that his blessing was unusual. His healing skill also caused a strange sensation of comfort. He recalled Xia's unusual reaction when she was healed, and a confident smile crossed his face. If that was the case, then perhaps he could use it in another way. He cast his blessing in a new manner, releasing it toward the fleeing beast. The pink energy struck the monster, and it immediately froze in shock. Its expression changed, its face flushing red, while small pink hearts appeared around its body. Another shaman looked utterly confused, unable to understand what was happening to its companion. In that instant, the older sister seized the opportunity and launched her attack. A powerful blast of blue and red energy struck the two beasts. When the attack was over, she stood tall, triumph shining in her eyes. The white ghosts lay dead, their bodies scattered across the snow. Xia let out a deep breath, collapsed into the snow, and said that was a close call. She praised the protagonist for cleverly using his blessing like a poison. But her older sister immediately smacked her on the head for being careless. The girl apologized while clutching her head, promising not to repeat her mistake. Moments later, the sister approached the corpse of the explorer who had been left behind. She confirmed he was truly dead, while the protagonist silently observed. Sia revealed a blue star pearl, saying they were lucky since both shamans carried one. The protagonist took a deep breath and asked if the man was really dead, because he intended to claim the item. His sister explained that he had to retrieve the pearl from the man's brain, otherwise the beasts would take it instead. The protagonist was stunned, thinking to himself how lightly these girls treated such matters, as if they were just out enjoying ice cream. His sister called for him to hurry, warning that more white ghosts would soon return. As they walked through the snow, they came across the corpses of the entire explorer team. A chill ran down the protagonist's spine as he realized all the members had been wiped out. Soon after, they found the body of the group's captain. The sight made the protagonist's stomach churn, and he covered his mouth to keep from vomiting at the gruesome scene. His sister remarked that it was their own fault. The shaman cub they carried had a mark on it. Because of that, no matter where they went, the white ghosts would pursue them. She added that if they had abandoned the cub, they might have survived. Their companion complained that their star pearls were too few and asked if the explorers hadn't left any behind. The sister explained they had likely used them all while running from the ghosts. At that point, Xia Yan turned to the protagonist and asked him to examine a human pearl. His sister questioned whether he wasn't afraid of it, since it came from a person. But he replied that it wasn't much different from a beast's pearl, except that it couldn't be absorbed. Suddenly, a system notification appeared before his eyes. The screen said something was being detected, and his eyes glowed as the reflection of the purple pearl shimmered across them. He was shocked. Everyone had said it was impossible to absorb human pearls. Yet, the one he held began to shine brightly, radiating a powerful violet energy. The quality of the star bead contains the attributes of the star. Leading among them are Asura Flash, Endurance, Blessing, and Decoy, which are of bronze quality that can be upgraded, combined, and absorbed. And Flame Mark, Explosive Flame, Chime, and Marking Seal, which are of silver quality, can also be upgraded, combined, and absorbed. When the protagonist read this, he thought that with his current strength of the Stardust phase, he could embed at most 2 more star skills into his slot. The Chime and Marking Seal were a combination and compatible skills of the group's healing star. These were the perfect choices. The protagonist called his sister Han Zhongshe and Xia Yan. He said that he felt the kind of healing star skill in the star pearl he was holding. He thought he could absorb it. The two were surprised, and his sister asked what he was saying. He was able to extract the star skill coming from a person's star pearl. That certainly wasn't good news for other awakened beings. Sia was shocked and said that it was a world-breaking method that was too unreal. He even asked if what he really felt were just healing star skills and nothing else. The protagonist shook his head and thought that he needed to hide an ace and not casually reveal that he already had an internal star map. He answered Sia that he was simply more sensitive to healing-type star skills. He even thanked the two of them because he had come this far. As teammates, they were closely bonded together as a group with shared interests. Based on contribution, this star pearl would go to Xia Yan. Xia Yan moved slightly closer to the protagonist and told him he didn't need to be polite. He should quickly absorb it and show his elder sister this wonderful thing. And if he really could do it, then he would also have a golden future tightly within his grasp. When he heard that, he didn't hesitate anymore, broke the star pearl, and then the purple energy burst out in front of him. This energy was seen flowing into the bodies of Xia Yan and his elder sister. Xia Yan realized that the two skills appeared in one star slot. These were the Chime and Marking Seal. She couldn't believe that the protagonist had done it. The scene shifted to the garden apartment complex where the protagonist lived. When they entered their house, his elder sister immediately took off her clothes and hung them on the wall. Then she looked at their picture with their parents. With a sad voice, she said to their mother and father that they had returned. Their journey to the snowfield had truly matured the protagonist. She even talked about the protagonist being a naturally born genius. His 3-star slots contained 2-star skills each. The protagonist suddenly said that he was going to his room to wash himself, because if he didn't take a bath right away, he would rot from his foul smell. His sister didn't answer, but quietly observed him. Afterward, she turned her attention back to the picture of their parents. She also said that the protagonist was destined to become a radiant awakener like the two of them. But as his elder sister, could she really protect him? Meanwhile, inside the protagonist's room, there were many flying insects. He was disgusted by what he saw and thought that his room was extremely dirty and messy. He even covered his nose as he picked up his rotting socks. Then he immediately threw them into the trash bin. He thought that with this much trash, how long would it take him to clean it all? After 3 hours, he had completely cleaned his room until it almost sparkled in its cleanliness, with no more clutter. He sighed in relief while smiling, saying that he almost died from exhaustion. He forcefully laid his body on the bed but quickly got up again. He thought that he still needed to fix the other things that the body's owner had left behind. He pressed the button of his computer. And when it began to turn on, a video suddenly played where the former owner of the body was introducing himself. Arrogantly, he said that on that day, he had officially awakened. They should remember his name, Jiang Xiao, the future god of the North River's dimensional realms. The protagonist was slightly annoyed at what he was watching. The former body's owner kept saying that while some parents joked that children were picked up from the trash, he was truly picked up from the trash. He introduced his mother, Zhang Hongye, a gentle and beautiful woman. Now, look at his name. On the day his mother saw him was also the day her dog died. That dog's name was Xiaopi, so she passed the dog's name on to him. He was grateful because that dog was such a cute one. The protagonist gritted his teeth in anger when he heard that. He even said in his mind that it was a ridiculously casual origin of a name. In his serious watching, he was startled when there was a loud knock on his door. He almost broke into a sweat and turned around. When he looked, his elder sister appeared, calling him to eat. Suddenly, his sister's eyes widened at what she saw in her brother's room, and she asked if he was the one who cleaned it. The protagonist answered with a smile and a thumbs up. After that, the scene shifted to the kitchen, where food was already prepared on their table. The protagonist was delighted by what he saw and by the smell of the food. He remembered, feeling excited, that in his previous life he only ate instant noodles. While scooping rice from the rice cooker, his sister said that Sha Yan would come tomorrow to pick him up. They would conduct 5 days of special training for the upcoming final stage of the military training. The protagonist quickly reached for the bowl of rice and asked why the military training would end so soon. Couldn't he train for a few more days? One-on-one, he thought, was more effective than one against many. His sister disagreed. He needed to participate in the military training and show off at the final performance. Only there. That was the only way for him to be qualified to join their group acceptably. Afterward, she told him to eat, adding that Sha Yan would explain the other details. But she added as an afterthought that he should delete the strange things in his blog. The protagonist grew annoyed, repeatedly saying that he had already deleted them. While they were eating, his sister handed him a piece of meat and told him to eat plenty of it. The protagonist happily ate and said that this was the feeling of a home where someone cared for him and where there was also delicious food. After they finished eating, the protagonist took the bowls and told his sister to rest and that he would handle the washing. His sister was pleased and looked at him with a smile on her lips. The protagonist cheerfully washed the dishes while humming a tune and swaying his body slightly. A few minutes later, he smilingly grabbed the towel hanging on the wall. But he suddenly froze and turned his attention to the pictures stuck on the fridge. He curiously examined them and thought that his sister looked very cute when she was young, and their father and mother looked elegant. The parents of the original owner had disappeared after entering another world several years ago. He wondered if there was still a chance to see them again. The scene shifted to where someone suddenly put an arm around the protagonist's shoulder. Sha Yan arrived, saying that she would take the boy for now and return him after a week. As they walked away, the protagonist angrily told Sha Yan to stop hugging his neck. Sha Yan angrily replied, calling him a little bastard and telling him to call her elder sister. As they walked out of the apartment, the protagonist said that their ages weren't that far apart. Meanwhile, in a room where a mysterious man stood in front of a window, he silently observed and watched the protagonist with Sha Yan. The scene then shifted to a huge mansion where Sha Yan lived. This was the Zonghua Mencheng community, and a hand repeatedly rang the doorbell. When he entered, he was greeted by a muscular man wearing boxing gloves. Sha Yan introduced him to the protagonist as Lei Jin. For the next 5 days, he would be his coach. After the 5 days of special training, he would go to school. He needed to be included in the first-year class as soon as possible and be chosen as a student representative. It didn't matter if he became the top or not. What mattered was that he could show his worth and be noticed by the leader. He was asked if he understood. The protagonist agreed while sweating. After that, it was explained that his phone would be confiscated during the special training. She happily reported that they would have 3 meals a day, then bid him goodbye with a kiss and said she would go upstairs to rest. The scene shifted to Sha Yan taking a bath. After coming out of the bathroom and adjusting her towel, she felt a pleasant sensation. She even smiled slightly while wrapping her hair with the towel. But the pleasant feeling of bathing was interrupted when she noticed the protagonist's phone lying on the table. She paused for a moment while staring at it, then revealed a mischievous smile as if she were planning something bad. The protagonist's older sister was throwing powerful punches at the punching bag. With her last strike, the punching bag was almost thrown off because of the strength she used. It fell to the floor as she was drenched in sweat and panting. While wiping her sweat, she looked at her phone, thinking that perhaps her younger brother was also training. Suddenly, her phone rang and a special notification appeared. Wang Xiaopi, our protagonist, had just released a new vlog. He posted a picture of Sha Yan's thigh, saying in his post that he was happy to be at Sister Sha's house and that Sha's long legs looked beautiful. He even said that this was the first day he felt love for Sha. When his older sister read this, her brows furrowed in anger. The scene shifted to show Gang Junwei's sword, which had 25 star slots. Its star map contained a Tang sword with 2 bronze star skills, 3 silver, and 1 gold. His star power was at the nebula stage. Like Han Zhongshe and Sha Yan, he too was a destined child. He was in his 3rd year of high school but currently in his 1st year. Our protagonist wanted to challenge him, but he first needed to win the championship in the military training performance against the leading group of high school students. Meanwhile, the protagonist's star power was triggered. A blue energy was being released from him as he cultivated. This effect sped up his accumulation and recovery of star power. Suddenly, he woke up and realized that his Stardust Stage Level 3 had advanced to Stardust Stage Level 4. He was overjoyed at the breakthrough, thinking that he had leveled up, and with just 1 more level, he could defeat Gao Zhanwei. After his training, he opened the lunch box filled with vegetables. He almost broke down upon seeing it. This was Xiaoyan's special nutrition meal. He forced himself to eat it, nearly moved to tears because he did not like it. It wasn't bad for him, but it wasn't tasty either. Suddenly, he missed eating instant noodles. Because he wanted to join his sister's group, he had to endure. His coach noticed his reaction to the food. While watching him, he thought about how this boy woke up at 4 a.m. and trained until 9 p.m. He never complained, was not mischievous, and always exceeded targets. The protagonist was diligent in his training and seriously followed everything written in his book. His trainer thought that at 16 years old, it was as if this boy had been locked in a basement and trained in a demonic way. Anyone would go crazy under such conditions. This was the first time he had ever seen a child this determined. Meanwhile, the trainer almost gagged at the vegetables he himself was eating. He even said he missed eating barbecue. The next morning, in the Shaw family mansion, inside a room, a man was shouting, asking if they were sure there was no mistake. Who was brought into the house, and why wasn't he informed immediately? This furious man on the phone was Sha Yan's father, Sha Shanhai. When his wife heard him, she asked why he was so angry. Sha Yan's mother's name was Hezian. Before Sha Yan's father hung up the phone, he told his wife that their princess had brought a boy into the house. His wife was slightly pleased and asked if it wasn't a good thing that their daughter had found love. She asked more. Who was this boy? What was his character like, and who did he resemble? Sha Yan's father answered that he had seen the boy already, and his name was Jiang Xiao, the young son of the Han family. Sha Yan's mother's eyes widened in shock upon hearing the name. She told her husband she did not agree for their daughter to marry him. Her husband angrily replied that he did not agree either. But he showed her the phone and told her to look, because 4 days had already passed since their daughter brought the boy home. On the phone was the protagonist's post, saying he liked Sha Yan. Sha Yan's father added that every day the boy updated about how much he liked their daughter. Sha Yan's mother almost cried, begging her husband to go immediately to their daughter to find out the truth. She feared that if they were even 2 days late, their daughter might already be giving birth. Sha Yan's father was baffled at her words, thinking she was overreacting. Meanwhile, under the blazing sun outside the Sha family mansion, the protagonist continued his training. He threw punches that struck his trainer's arm. Blow after blow landed as his trainer shouted at him to go faster. The trainer asked him how he could possibly knock down his opponent with such weak strength. When the protagonist heard this, he poured all his power into his fist and unleashed a strong punch. It directly struck his trainer's arm, forcing him to stagger back several meters. The trainer smiled at him, telling him that he did well. With his fist still clenched, the protagonist gave a slight smile at the result of his effort. He thought to himself that he had finally managed to break through his trainer's defense without using star power. His trainer was pleased with him, immediately approached, wrapped an arm around his neck, and told him he was a good kid and that this was the style he liked. He advised him to just keep doing this and he would succeed in whatever he wanted to achieve. Suddenly, an old maid, Auntie Jo, appeared before them and asked for their attention. The trainer was surprised and asked if dinner was going to be served early today. Before the maid could answer, Sha's father suddenly entered through the door. He was shocked by what he saw. Even the protagonist was surprised when he recognized who had arrived. 10 minutes earlier, when the maid opened the door, she was shocked to see that the one who had arrived was Sha Yan's father. He immediately asked where his daughter Yan Yan was. The maid replied that it had been 3 days since the young lady left with Miss Han and went to the snowfield again. The father was pleased and said that was good, as long as they knew where the child had gone. He even praised the Han family's daughter, saying she was kind and motivated. After that, he asked if it was true that nothing had changed in their house today. The maid agreed, but added that 4 days ago, a boy had moved into their house. He was directly taken to the basement by Sha, and until now, he had not come out. The father was shocked and began to think badly, wondering if his daughter had illegally locked the boy inside. In his mind, he imagined the protagonist imprisoned in a cell. He could not believe that his precious daughter would confine someone. Even if Jiang Xiao had a bad attitude and was notorious, he was still the son of his best friend. Disagreeing with marriage was one thing, but abusing someone like this was unacceptable. His thoughts were interrupted when the maid spoke. She said that the young lady had hired a personal trainer for the protagonist. They lived and ate together in the basement, and every day they trained. Whenever she brought food, she saw the protagonist covered in bruises and drenched in sweat. Mr. Shaw's eyes widened, unable to believe that Jiang Xiao was training. The maid asked if he wanted to go down and see, and since it was also dinner time, she offered to serve him food there. Mr. Shaw fell silent, thinking he might have been exaggerating too much. The maid added that they would let the boy out before it got dark. Mr. Shaw turned around and told the maid that since he was already there, why not go down and take a look? In his mind, he thought that he needed to change his view of what his daughter Yan Yan had said about bringing the protagonist into the house. He even wondered why his daughter hadn't told him that she was bringing a personal trainer. Back to the present, where Mr. Shaw walked around and confirmed that the protagonist was truly training. The protagonist remembered that this man was his uncle, Uncle Shaw. Mr. Shaw was delighted that even though nearly 10 years had passed since they last saw each other, the boy still recognized him. After that, he invited the protagonist to come out of the basement and rest. He said that, as his uncle, he would show him a little concern this year, and that it was his fault. The protagonist scratched the back of his neck in embarrassment and said that his uncle's words were serious. He remembered that the original owner of the body had a proud personality, but the man before him was very kind and generous, almost like his sister Han Zhongshe. Outside the Shaw mansion, the sun was nearly setting. The trainer stretched his arms and shouted that the sunset looked beautiful, especially if there was barbecue. Then he turned to the maid and said he wanted to eat skewers. When the protagonist heard this, his eyes practically sparkled. As he walked closer to the maid, he was drooling while repeatedly saying, "Barbecue." Before long, barbecue sticks were already cooking over the hot grill. The protagonist was overjoyed while eating, repeatedly saying how delicious it was. Meanwhile, Mr. Shaw looked on seriously while drinking. He slightly bowed his head, smiling, and told the protagonist that his uncle was truly pleased with the great change in him. He thought that his parents would also be happy once they learned of this. When the protagonist heard this, he thought of the original body's family. They had been gone for several years, and only a few memories of them remained with the original owner. After thinking for a while, he called out to Uncle Shaw and asked if there was a chance for people who had disappeared into another dimension to return. Uncle Shaw replied that no one knew, because the appearance of the dimension gate was mysterious. There was still much they did not know, waiting to be discovered, and the pioneer group that their family was part of had been specially formed for this purpose. Because new dimensional gates were frequently appearing in this world, it brought fear to many people. And in order to investigate the properties of extra-dimensional space, an organization called the Pioneer Corps was formed. The team was composed of military forces and naturalized foreign players. Once a new dimensional gate appeared, they would immediately enter and assess the danger, examine the resources, and determine what existed inside. They checked whether the materials and organisms there were useful to humans, whether the creatures were too ferocious, whether the environment exceeded human capability, whether there was a possibility for humans to live there, or whether it needed to be destroyed completely. For example, the snowfield they had gone to. This meant that the pioneers shed blood, sweat, and even gave their lives to conduct investigations. Only then did the subsequent official development and opening of extra-dimensional space to the outside world occur. The Pioneer Corps was the most dangerous team, but also the greatest. And his parents belonged to them, pioneers who became his role models, giving him a reason to work hard in the future. The protagonist once again caught Mr. Shaw's attention and asked where the alternate dimension was where his parents had disappeared. Mr. Shaw replied that he could not go there yet, but he could tell him the name. It was the Dragon Cave, where two massive dragons covered in blue energy could be found. Mr. Shaw also advised him to try to become strong. Someday, he would be able to go to the Dragon Cave and find the only way to obtain an explanation. The protagonist gripped the stick in his hand tightly while staring at the barbecue, thinking about the Dragon Cave. Mr. Shaw suddenly coughed deliberately and added that in just 2 days, he would be entering school. The protagonist said that Shaw Yan told him she would take him to school tomorrow. Mr. Shaw shook his head and said that his daughter was too strict, and training should be more moderate. The protagonist replied that Shaw Yan was doing him good, and that it was he himself who asked for such difficult training. Mr. Shaw frowned and thought that he had only said his daughter was wrong, but why did it feel like the boy was protecting her? He then forced a smile and told the protagonist that his daughter had grown up. He no longer wanted to meddle in the affairs of young people, but they should focus on their studies and not on love. He even asked the protagonist if he understood. The protagonist was confused and immediately asked what he was talking about regarding love. As Mr. Shaw recalled the times he read the protagonist's vlog posts, he asked if he was not Jiang Xiao, who posted vlogs every day about his relationship with his daughter, from the first day, second, third, and fourth. The protagonist replied in confusion that yes, he was Jiang Xiao, but Shaw Yan had taken his phone on the first day of training. Mr. Shaw was shocked by what he heard and asked if that was true. The 5th day of training arrived. The protagonist sat quietly as a window system appeared, triggering abundant star power. While meditating, he gathered blue energy throughout his body. He thought that his star power had been stuck at Stardust stage level 4, and it was not rising. He believed that every 5 levels was a small bottleneck. A notification appeared stating that his current star power was Stardust stage level 4. He thought that in order to maximize the benefits, it was best to save the skill points until he reached the bottleneck. His meditation was suddenly interrupted when his trainer arrived and called him. He was informed that his training was finished and that the trainer would be transferring to a new employer. The protagonist said goodbye to his trainer, but suddenly, he was shocked and his eyes widened when he saw his sister, Han Zhongxie, smiling at him. He smiled and asked his sister if they had returned from the snowfield. His sister nodded as a reply and handed him 4 blue star pearls. The protagonist was surprised and puzzled by what his sister gave him. She explained that those were white ghost witch star beads. The protagonist almost stuttered, unable to believe that she had given him 4 pieces. As he gazed at them, he thought that his sister had killed all the white witches in the snowy plains. Suddenly, his sister jokingly asked if that was still not enough, and if it wasn't, she would find another way to get more. The protagonist was speechless, shyly staring at his sister, clearly shocked at what he had just heard. The protagonist bit his lip as he watched his sister, thinking. So that's why she went back to the snowfield. Just to collect white ghost shaman star pearls. He smiled and called out his sister's name, then quickly hugged her, burying his face into her chest, expressing his gratitude. His sister gently patted his back and softly said that he didn't need to thank her. But perhaps, she should first explain to him about those blog posts. The protagonist was stunned and looked at his sister in surprise. She showed him the posts, from his first day at Sha Yan's house to the 4th day. All filled with photos that seemed to show his affection toward Sha Yan. When he saw them, he trembled with anger. He furiously told his sister that he wasn't the one who posted them. No wonder Uncle Sha had been acting so weird toward him. He explained that she had taken his phone. He wasn't the person who made those posts. Those pictures were just photoshopped. Furious, he pointed at Sha Yan, who was quietly sitting on a chair. He shouted, saying that woman had such a wicked heart. She deliberately wanted to cause trouble between them. He was sure she had set up those posts before going to the snowfield. He prayed to the heavens, begging them to judge who was honest and who was evil. His sister sighed deeply. His guess was right. She had been thinking the same thing. Afterward, she told him to go ahead and absorb the white ghost shaman star pearls. They would see if he could upgrade them to silver. He agreed and picked up the container of pearls. A notification appeared. Current blessing level. Brass level 4, 4/10. Current decoy level. Brass level 4, 4/10. He thought back. Before, on the body of the dead healing type awakened. He found 2 unabsorbed white ghost shaman star pearls. Plus the 2 more he got from the slain white ghost shamans. That was how his blessing had reached brass level 4. He took 1 pearl from the container and stared at it briefly. Then crushed it with his hand. As it shattered, he watched the faint blue aura surrounding him. Notification appeared. White ghost shaman star pearls absorbed 4 times. Given the current special situation, he decided to use 2 more skill points. Just enough to level up. Notification appeared again. Current blessing level. Brass level 10, 10 out of 10. Current decoy level. Brass level 10, 10 out of 10. Upgrade requirements met. Star ability. Quality increased. Blessing. From brass right pointing arrow silver. Decoy. From brass right pointing arrow silver. When Sha Yan saw he had finished absorbing, she repeatedly asked how he was feeling. The protagonist grinned mischievously. Then with a wave of his hand said, "I bless you." The blessing energy flowed through her body, making her entire figure glow with a faint red light. Her eyes widened in shock as she felt it. In her consciousness, she suddenly found herself under the blazing sun. As she slowly opened her eyes, she felt a warm ocean breeze flowing through her body, washing away all her fatigue. In her mind, she stood by the sea, wearing a bikini, enjoying the refreshing sensation. She realized. So this was the power of a silver grade blessing. It felt so good, so refreshing. Her sister sighed and scolded the protagonist, saying he was being foolish again. The protagonist scratched his head and explained that he just wanted to try it. The scene then shifted to Bincheng High School. His sister had driven him there. And before he got out of the car, she reminded him, Zhongbin First High School isn't just full of awakened students like us. There are also many normal students here. So behave yourself. Don't cause trouble, and don't fight your classmates. Inside the car, Sha Yan smiled and said, ever since you became more serious, Shui's gotten really talkative too. Smiling, she waved at him and said, go on, report by yourself, kid. The senior girls are waiting for you. The protagonist waved back and said he got it. As he walked toward the campus, he noticed the students in front of him and thought, ever since he came to this world, he'd been struggling to survive in the freezing wastelands. And now, he was going back to school, jumping straight into senior year. He was irritated by the situation. After all these years of not studying, why did he have to jump straight into hell mode in high school? He grimaced, almost in tears, wondering why he couldn't have just reincarnated as a college student or something. When he entered the school, he went straight to the disciplinary office. A teacher called him over while holding his papers and noticed that he only had 9-star slots. The teacher mentioned that his registration and military training had been postponed because he supposedly went to the snowfield for training. The protagonist nodded in agreement. The teacher thought to himself that what this kid called training was more likely just an excuse to avoid military drills. Kids these days, able to lie 3 times in one sentence. Suspicious, the teacher asked him to show his star map. The protagonist happily complied, and with a snap of his fingers, the star map appeared behind him. The teacher was stunned. He stood up from his seat, goosebumps rising all over his body as his eyes locked on the 3-star skills shining with a golden glow. He saw that there was blessing, azure flash, and chime. He shouted, impossible. Both blessing and azure flash are brass grade. How do you have 3 silver grade star skills? The protagonist lowered his head slightly and said in a calm tone, they were star pearls left to me by my parents. As per Han Zhongshui's instructions, he decided to blame everything on his mysterious parents he had never met. He added, they went missing on a mission 3 years ago. The teacher then asked who brought him to the snowfield for training. He answered, Han Zhongshui, my older sister. The teacher finally realized, so he was Han Zhongshui's younger brother. That explained everything. The Han family of the Pioneers Corps, no wonder. He must have taken his mother's surname. The teacher thought it was a pity, this boy only had 9-star slots. But for someone with low potential who managed to absorb 3 silver grade star skills, 2 of which were healing types. Even if he didn't grow much stronger later on. For now, among high school students, this kid was already exceptional. The teacher then invited him to come along. The scene shifted to a wide training ground. A girl gasped slightly, saying there was a new handsome student. Immediately, a blonde-haired girl looked around to find him. She was Yiliana, a first-year awakened student from Bincheng High School, Class 2. Another girl pointed, saying, look, he's talking to the coach. That girl was Lu Kei, also a first-year awakened from Bincheng High School, Class 2. She repeated that the boy next to the coach might be that excellent Class 2 student who took a leave for training. Suddenly, someone stepped in front of the protagonist and said they met again, asking if he was also a student from Class 2. The protagonist smiled when he saw Instructor Lei. He was glad that he was also here at school. Hearing this, the teacher turned to Instructor Lei and asked if they knew each other. Lei replied, I've been training this kid in special training for several days. I didn't expect we'd meet again here. He explained that Director Gao said one of the coaches couldn't attend, so he was sent as an emergency substitute. The protagonist was delighted to hear that, though the teacher remained silently observing him. Instructor Lei then told the protagonist to go back to his assigned unit. All the students turned to look at him. Just then, one of the students blocked his path and called out to him, classmate. The student extended his hand and introduced himself. I'm Lu Bufan, correspondent of Class 2. Now that you've joined, if you ever need anything, just come to me. The protagonist greeted him back and introduced himself, I'm Jiang Xiao. Lu Bufan smiled, welcoming him to Class 2, then curiously asked. You've got a lot of star slots, right? What attribute are you? He bragged that he had 19 star slots. Feeling a bit embarrassed, the protagonist replied that his number of slots was just what was left for him. Lu Bufan looked puzzled and asked, wait, you really only have 9? The protagonist nodded. Yeah. Then, a student with a scar on his lip walked up from behind, speaking arrogantly. So this is the guy everyone's been talking about. The one who got recruited into Class 2 and skipped military training. He sneered. Turns out he's just a 9-slot loser. Unbelievable. This school actually allows backdoor entries now. When the protagonist heard this, he glared at him with anger on his face. The students grew uneasy and began whispering among themselves. Liu Kei quietly asked Yiliana, they're not going to fight, right? With concern, Lu Bufan stepped forward and said that since the school placed the protagonist in the same class, it meant they recognized his ability. The last student in their class finally finished reporting. He advised him not to be too aggressive. With a smirk, the student said that all 8 awakened classes had been eagerly waiting for his arrival. Everyone wanted to know who took the last spot in Class 2. And the result? He only had 9 star slots. He couldn't believe that a loser like this managed to enter the elite class. He asked if the teachers were blind. Instead of getting angry, the protagonist sighed and explained. He had few star slots, but he was a medical type awakened. That was probably why he was accepted into Class 2. Everyone fell silent upon hearing this. Lu Bufan turned to him in shock, unable to believe that he was a medical type. The protagonist nodded, confirming his guess. He looked at the student with a scar on his lip and asked if he had a problem with him. Why not go to the academic office and check the placement criteria? The student said nothing, shaking his head in embarrassment and frustration. He thought, if only he'd said earlier that he was a medical type. Now he looked like a fool in front of everyone. Suddenly, Liu Kei shouted, startling the student so much that his whole body trembled. His shout was so loud that even Yiliana covered her ears. He quickly apologized for yelling too loudly. Then, with excitement, he told Yiliana that in all 8 years and in all the first-year classes this year, this was the only medical type, and he was in their class. With a slightly sad expression, Yiliana agreed. After several hours of student training, the coach blew his whistle to stop them, saying that was enough for the day. After changing clothes and gathering their belongings, they began to leave. As the protagonist walked away, he thought. Aside from the regular classes for ordinary students, Bincheng High School also had special classes for awakened students. Each year, there were 8 classes, and the school assigned students based on evaluation. Since he had registered late, most of the squads were already formed. There were only 3 days left before the military training ended. If he wanted to represent the class in the competition, he had to reveal his true ability. The next morning, 4 a.m. At the training ground, 3 students had already begun exercising. Liu Kei was panting heavily from exhaustion, begging Yiliana to wait for him. He also asked why they had to wake up earlier than the roosters just to torture themselves. Yiliana replied that the best time of the day was in the morning. If they didn't train properly, how would they improve? If they didn't push themselves, they'd be left behind. He asked, Left behind by what? There was no one else on this track but them. No one worked harder than they did. Too tired to continue, he fell to the ground and wished they could just go back to sleep. Crying and with tears streaming down his face, he wondered why he had ever chosen to become an awakened. He just wanted to draw manga and relax, like a small fish. His crying stopped when he noticed something ahead. He saw the protagonist, wiping off sweat. He was stunned and realized someone was actually working harder than they were. He called out to him, "Hey, white-haired student." Waving cheerfully, he introduced himself. He was Liu Kei, and they were classmates. The protagonist greeted him warmly and introduced himself as well. The protagonist was surprised when Liu Kei suddenly grabbed his hand. Smiling, Liu Kei asked if he had already found a squad. If not, he asked if he wanted to join theirs. While still holding his hand, she asked the protagonist if he was, by any chance, a medical type awakened. Their squad already had a tank and a damage dealer, a great lineup that would surely ensure his safety. But Liu Kei was suddenly startled when someone forcefully patted her on the shoulder. Behind her appeared Yiliana, smiling as she introduced herself to the protagonist. She was Yiliana, also from Class 2. She said Liu Kei was just always noisy and energetic, he shouldn't mind her too much. She then introduced the two siblings who were with them. The older brother Zhu Wen, who only gave him a sharp look, and Zhu Wu, who smiled and waved at him. As the protagonist looked at them, he thought that there were already 4 of them, just right for a standard squad. He thanked them for the invitation, but since their squad seemed full, he asked if there was still space. Everyone was surprised and froze for a moment at what he said. But Liu Kei cheerfully replied that it was fine. Even if the official slots were full, he could still be a substitute. She explained that she was basically the team's mascot anyway. Her job was just to shout and cheer. 666. She was friends with Nana, that's why she joined their team. Those two siblings and Nana were among the top freshmen this year. Many people wanted to be in the same team as them. She was too weak, she said, and didn't want to slow them down. The protagonist was surprised at what he heard and thought to himself that he had actually watched them earlier today. As the 4 talked, he realized that the twins' combat skills were among the best in Class 2. Joining a high-tier squad like this would be a great opportunity for growth. His thoughts were interrupted when someone called out to him. Zhu Wen had something to ask. Zhu Wen requested if he could tell them what kind of medical star skills he had absorbed. But his younger brother quickly elbowed him, saying, "Brother, that's not how you do it." If they wanted to invite him to the team, they should introduce themselves first. Showing off his muscular arm, Zhu Wu said that he and his brother both had a fist-type star map. 20 star slots, 2 star skills, both brass grade, azure flash and endurance. Yiliana smiled slightly and raised 2 fingers, saying she had a dual wand star map. 21 star slots, 4 star skills, all brass grade, azure flash, endurance, flame mark, and explosive flame. The protagonist's eyes gleamed with interest. He thought that talents like Han Zhongshe and Xia Yan were rare monsters. With 20 or 21 star slots, they were already considered far above ordinary awakened ones. With his eyes closed, the protagonist calmly said that he only had 9 star slots. As for his star skills, they were Blessing, Azure Flash, and Chime, all silver grade. Zhu Wen was slightly impressed upon hearing Blessing and Chime, since both were healing star skills. But then he froze, realizing what had just been said, and asked again, "Wait, what grade did you say your star skills are?" The protagonist calmly replied, "Silver grade." Everyone screamed in shock, unable to believe what they'd heard. The protagonist covered his ears, overwhelmed by how loud they were. Then he was taken aback, left speechless, as the 4 of them grabbed him from different sides, holding him in place so he couldn't escape. Zhu Wen thanked the heavens and begged the protagonist to carry him. The protagonist asked them to just call him Xiaopi. He thought that he'd assumed the hardest part would be finding a squad, but it turned out it was resolved so easily. A few hours later, at the center of the school, students gathered to watch a fight where a boy attacked fiercely with his fists. Gao Junkan swiftly dodged it. In a mocking tone, Gao Junkan asked the boy if that was all he had. He gathered faint yellow energy into his fist and launched a quick punch straight into the boy's stomach. Seeing that, the coach immediately blew his whistle. He shouted Gao Junkan's name and told him to stop. He added, "How many times do I have to tell you to hold back your strength? That's your classmate, not a monster from the dimensional realm." Gao Junkan only turned away in irritation and muttered to the coach that it was annoying. He explained that he didn't kill him anyway. As he was leaving, his friend called his attention, telling him to look over there, at class 1. When he looked, he asked who that white-haired guy was. Why was he so close to Nana? His friend said he'd heard that the guy from class 2, the one who always skipped military training, had finally shown up yesterday. That guy, daring to challenge Brother Chen and even trying to steal his girl. Gao Junkan stretched, cracking his knuckles with a grin. As he walked away, he told everyone that after today's training, they'd all join him. They were going to give that punk a proper welcome, a special lesson for his first day. He could see the two looking happy as they talked together. After several hours of training, some students were completely exhausted, while one of them was happy because finally, they could take a break. Liliana invited her teammates to go to the cafeteria. Before they left, Liliana suddenly remembered that because they were so excited yesterday, they actually forgot to exchange contact information. Smiling, she asked the protagonist if he wanted to add her as a friend. She would add him to the class group chat and the discussion group. The protagonist agreed, saying he'd do the same. Not far from them, Gao Junction and his friend were watching. As they looked at the two, his friend teased him, saying that at this rate, they might be holding hands next. Gao Junction got angry and shouted at his friend, asking if he had the guts to say that again. With a serious look, he then asked if the two were really heading to the cafeteria. They'd just wait until that bastard was alone. The scene then shifted to the cafeteria. The vendor told the protagonist that his meal card wasn't active yet. From behind him, Liu Kei and Liliana hurriedly competed to use their cards to pay for his meal. Liu Kei explained that there must be a system error, his information probably wasn't properly registered. They said they'd accompany him to the academic office later to have it reactivated. The protagonist declined and said it was fine, he'd handle it himself later. Meanwhile, his sister and Xia Yan were sitting not far away. Xia Yan pointed out to Shui Shui to look at her brother. He had already made some friends, and they were even cute female classmates. Shui Shui looked over and saw how friendly her brother was with his new friends. While watching them, Xia Yan asked if she thought he might get a crush early. Shui Shui just shook her head and closed her eyes, saying to let him be. Xia Yan was surprised, wondering why Shui Shui suddenly seemed so relaxed about it. Shui Shui stayed quiet, thinking about how Xiaopi used to be so cold and distant. But ever since she slapped him before, he had changed into a different person. She thought that maybe he had really trembled once between life and death and decided to change himself. But if he stayed tense and serious all the time, that would also hurt his training. Having friends his age, it was a good thing. Still, she couldn't help but feel worried. Xia Yan sighed, holding her head, saying she felt like she was turning into a nagging mother. Meanwhile, the protagonist finished his meal and placed his tray back. Then, he took out his phone. While walking back up the stairs, he thought about telling Han Zhongshe and the others that he had successfully found a squad. But suddenly, 3 students blocked his path. They invited him to come with them for a short walk. The protagonist couldn't even speak, just staring at them in surprise. One of the students, who had a scar on his lip, grabbed his arm so he couldn't escape. He thought to himself that campus bullying was a common problem in many schools. Before he transmigrated, he never experienced it. He was so invisible back then that even the bullies didn't notice him. Who would have thought that after transmigrating, besides gaining friends and family, now, even bullying had been added to his checklist? They shoved him into a dark room, and once inside, Gao Junction asked if he was Jiang Xiao. He said he'd been getting a little close to Liliana lately, hadn't he? Didn't he know that he liked that girl? Another friend added that this guy even joined Liliana's squad. Confused, the protagonist asked who this guy even was. Before answering, he grabbed a wooden sword and stepped down from his chair. Resting the wooden sword on his shoulder, he arrogantly introduced himself as Gao Junkin, the top dog of Class 1. In a mocking tone, he told the protagonist, how dare he approach the girl he liked. Then, he moved quickly, preparing to attack, shouting that today, he'd give him a personal lesson. The protagonist managed to dodge his strike. In his mind, the name sounded familiar. He attacked again, but the protagonist evaded once more. He compared the name, Gao Junction, to Gao Junwei. From their names alone, who would believe they weren't related? He wondered silently if this guy was seriously trying to kill him. Gao Junction laughed at him, the wooden sword on his shoulder glowing with yellow and red energy. He arrogantly declared that his family had both power and influence, so even if he injured him, what of it? One of the students praised him, saying how awesome Brother Chen was. Gao Junction was pleased with the situation. The protagonist faced the students and told them that they were violating the school rules. Gao Junction replied that they weren't violating anything, it was just friendly sparring. Even if something happens, he said, my brother will protect me. Then he mocked the protagonist, asking if he even knew who his brother was. Two students began walking toward the protagonist. But before they could get close, he calmly said that he was a medical type awakened. When the scarred student heard that, he tried to hold back his laughter, but failed. They burst out laughing and told the others to listen to what he said. Still smirking, the scarred boy mocked him further. Who cares what kind of awakened you are? You're still trash. You've only got 9 slots. He ordered his friends to grab him. Let's see if a medical type can take a beating. One student tried to grab the protagonist by the shoulder, but in one swift motion, the protagonist caught his hand, pulled him forward, and slammed him hard onto the floor. The scarred boy got furious. How dare you fight back? He shouted. The protagonist ignored him, his expression serious as he prepared to attack. He delivered a strong punch straight to the boy's stomach. The impact made him spit blood. The blow was so strong it sent him flying through the air, crashing hard into the wall. Gao Junction was stunned by what he saw, and so were the other students. He yelled at his friends, demanding why they were just standing there. He ordered them to catch the protagonist. Before one of them could reach him, the protagonist used his supreme leg whip. This is Azure Flash, Pro Max version. Then came the Howlin' Root Fist. A powerful strike that landed directly on his opponent's chin. When Gao Junction saw his friends defeated, he grew angry. He called the protagonist a bastard and prepared to attack with his wooden sword. But before he could make a move, the protagonist stared at him, stretched out his hand, and shouted, blessing. Purple and red energy spread around Gao Junction. He dropped his weapon, and a red beam of energy struck his head. He felt strange, dazed. What is this feeling? He muttered, confused. For a few seconds, he lost control of himself. The protagonist took that chance to move behind him and punched him in the face. Even when Gao Junction fell to the floor, the protagonist kept punching him. Mockingly, he asked, so what if you have power and connections? So what if your brother's cool? Does that give you the right to bully others and act like a tyrant? Gao Junction begged him to stop, shouting that he was breaking school rules, that he'd tell his brother about this. The protagonist smirked. Breaking school rules. How so? Didn't you say this was just friendly sparring? If you're bold enough to bully others, you'd better be ready to get reverse bullied. The scarred boy screamed in pain, clutching his ribs. My ribs, they're broken. He cried. The protagonist looked at him. Broken ribs. Sounds painful. But don't worry, he added coldly, just like I said, I'm a medical type awakened. These are only minor injuries. I promise I'll heal you all. The scene shifted outside the school. His sister was running. A student told her, they said they ran toward the storage room. While running, Shui Shui prayed desperately that nothing bad would happen, that they'd make it in time. She kicked the door open and yelled, "Stop right now. This is my fault," she said, trembling. I didn't take care of Xiaopi properly. But she froze. Her eyes widened in shock at the sight before her. The room was a mess, items scattered everywhere, a wooden stick broken in two. Another student arrived behind her, asking if anyone was hurt. Did they make it in time? When they stepped inside, they too froze. The students were lying on the floor, covered in bruises and wounds. The protagonist stood silently before them. The silence was broken when his sister called his name. She rushed to him and asked if he was hurt. He said he was fine, but asked why she was there. She explained that the class communication officer reported seeing students from another class dragging him away. When she noticed his last message hadn't been replied to, she went to look for him, and happened to meet the student behind her. She sighed in relief, holding her head. Thank goodness you're okay. She told him to return to training. She'd take care of things here. The protagonist was stunned by her words. She's even cleaning up his mess. How much trouble did the original owner of this body cause before? He replied calmly, there's nothing to fix. They're all fine. If you don't believe me, ask them yourself. The scarred student quickly agreed, forcing a smile. Why yeah, we're fine. We were just sparring. He even laughed. Arrogantly, the protagonist told his sister, see, I can handle my own problems. But in the scarred boy's mind, he was terrified. After being beaten half to death, they were healed, over and over again. No one could endure such torture. No wonder everyone said, never fight a medical type. They're real demons. Hours later, inside the school, Gao Junction could be heard crying as he called out for his brother. Shaking, he showed his broken wooden sword and complained, that guy's insane. His blessing skill must be poisonous or something. He even broke the sword you gave me. Please, avenge me. His brother turned to him, serious and calm. That's enough. I've heard enough, he said firmly. Focus on your training. Get a good rank at the showcase. Don't disappoint our mother. It's just a wooden sword. I'll get you a new one later. Gao Junction teared up and thanked his brother sincerely. His brother smiled gently. What are you talking about? You're my most precious little brother. Happily, Gao Junction said goodbye and ran off to start his training. His brother nodded, then looked out the window. He remembered. Jiang Xiao was Shui Shui's useless little brother. That night, the scene shifted to a popular diner. Inside, Yiliana apologized, saying she was sorry for getting caught up in the mess. Liu Kei asked, what's wrong with our little Nana being so charming? It's Gao Junction's fault. We should report him to the teacher. The protagonist asked, report him. Why? This was between men, and I already settled it. I gave him a serious beating. He's probably on his way to tell on me right now. Zhu Wu laughed. Serves Gao Junction right. He deserved that lesson. From now on, he added, we'll back you up whenever you fight them. His brother agreed. Right. On the third day, we'll go together. Don't let them catch you alone. If Lu Bufan hadn't shown up today, we wouldn't even know what happened. Liu Kei praised Lu Bufan for his quick thinking, calling for backup and summoning Senior Han. Don't you know? He said. Senior Han is the commander of the senior year school dominator squad, a living legend. And get this, Gao Junction's older brother is in the same squad. Liliana teased him. Do you ever stop gossiping? The protagonist cut in, saying, Han Zhongshe is my sister. Everyone froze. What? Han Zhongshe? The #1 girl in Binshanghai. The Dominator Squad leader. The aloof frost goddess. Is your sister? The protagonist sighed. How many titles does she even have? And what's that frost goddess thing supposed to mean? He set down his chopsticks and said seriously, anyway, there's something important I need to tell you all. Han Zhongshui's squad is full of internal conflict. It's endangering everyone in it. Ever since I awakened, she's been training me to join their squad. Zhu Wu clenched his fists, furious. I can't believe it's that bad. But with your current strength, joining the Dominator squad seems impossible. You only have 9-star slots. The protagonist said, it's quite difficult, but not impossible. His older sister was hoping that he would shine in the military training showcase. And then she would find a way, with the help of one of her allies, to give him a special opportunity for a promotion. He already checked that in grade 3, among 6 classes, there was only 1 medical type awakened. In grade 2, also 6 classes, there were only 2 medical types. And in their batch, 8 classes. For now, he was the only medical type awakened. Liliana said that he was a rare medical type, and even had 3 silver grade star skills. The teachers would surely see him in a different light. But his potential was limited. He couldn't always think about his sister. He also had to think about himself. The grade 3 students were often sent on dimensional missions. And his sister was even part of a ranked squad. Their missions would only get more dangerous. The protagonist said they were family. He trusted his sister. While clenching his fist, he explained that what he meant was, if the plan worked, he would probably have to leave their current squad. He apologized to them. Instead of getting angry, Zhu Wen told him, if he believed this was the right path, then he should just go for it. Zhu Wu agreed. Why was he even apologizing? Once teammates, always brothers. They supported his decision. The protagonist was surprised and asked if they weren't angry with him. Liliana asked what he was thinking. They weren't the type to stop a comrade. What she said earlier was only because she was worried about him. If he believed in himself, then he should keep going. Zhu Wen asked him to just help them get a good placement. And they'd support him so he could shine all the way to grade 3. After all, they were just following his lead anyway. Zhu Wu agreed, saying his older brother was right. Without him, if it were only Zhu Wu and Liu Ke, who knew if they'd have come this far? Meanwhile, Liu Ke was crying while eating. Feeling sad because it was rare to find such a strong medical type teammate. Liliana teased him, saying he was just sad because he wouldn't be a substitute anymore. Liu Ke got annoyed and asked why she had to say that out loud. He said they were no longer friends for 30 seconds. The protagonist happily thanked them all. He called out to Liu Ke and told him that no matter what ranking they got, when there was a reward, Liu Ke could have his share. Liu Ke refused and said, no way. What's mine is mine. The protagonist raised his drink and said that the reward didn't matter to him. Because their friendship meant more. The protagonist pretended to choke. Zhu Wu noticed and said, we're not even drinking anything, why are you being so dramatic? He said he was really cheesy. He should just eat instead. 3 days later, many students were there to watch the upcoming battle. One girl was excited because she saw many cute boys among the freshmen this year. She was holding her phone, recording a live video. Many of the commentators were getting impatient and complained that she was blocking the view. She apologized and said, hold on, I'll fix the feed. She realized there didn't seem to be anything impressive about this year's freshmen. But since they just enrolled, you couldn't really expect much yet. This girl was Su Ru, a grade 3 student. Hobby: documenting daily life. A guy beside her suddenly shouted in surprise, along with the other students. So she immediately turned to where they were pointing. One participant had fallen in the middle of the battle. His body full of bruises and wounds, surrounded by fading lightning. He glared at his opponent in anger and sighed. His opponent was Gao Junkan's group. He pointed his sword at him, surrounded by blue lightning from his pearl. Before he could attack, the defeated boy's teammate shouted that they surrendered. Gao Junkan looked disappointed and said, "How boring." The announcer declared that Grade 1, Class 1, won. The next team should get ready. Su Ru was excited, telling her livestream that she was taking back what she said earlier. This underclassman was amazing. The quality of his star skill was so high. Wasn't that a silver grade charge? A commentator agreed and said the boy must be rich. But they noticed he seemed to be looking for something around. When he finally saw what he was looking for, he shouted the protagonist's name and told him to wait. All the students were shocked. As Gao Junkan pointed at the protagonist, he angrily said that this time, right here in the arena, he would make him regret everything he'd done. Su Ru tried to find who he was pointing at and asked what was going on. Meanwhile, not far away, Junkan's older brother said to Shui Shui with a grin. "It seems your brother and mine are having a little conflict. The next match would be between them. Squad battles were different from one-on-one. If necessary, he said he would stop Junkan. He added that kids just love to cause trouble." Shui Shui looked at him seriously and told him to stop talking. He raised his hands and backed away a bit, agreeing to her request. Then he explained that he was just worried for his brother. If she didn't want to hear it, he'd keep quiet. Their conversation was interrupted when Xia Yan suddenly appeared behind them, brushing past him and sitting next to Shui Shui. Smiling, she asked, "Has the Grade 1 finals started? Where's Xiaopi? After Xiaopi's match, it'll be the Grade 3 finals, right?" Shui Shui cheerfully answered yes, while Junkan's brother looked irritated at Xia Yan. Meanwhile, Su Ru continued her livestream with her phone. She remembered that Jiang Xiao was from Grade 1, Class 2's team. She closed her eyes, recalling each battle where the protagonist participated. From the first match, he had mostly just watched and done nothing. Same with the second and third matches. She thought. In the earlier battles, he seemed to just hang back and win without doing anything. The twin brothers were the ones really fighting. A strategy of winning without doing anything. As Zhu Wu cracked his knuckles, he said, "After this match, when the Grade 3 finals are done, we can vote their team out of the squad." Liu Kei asked if pretending to be weak would even work. The protagonist already beat Gao Junkan. Surely his brother knows he's not someone easy to deal with. Yiliana grabbed a bottle of drink and said, "No matter how much Gao Junkan exaggerates, in his brother's eyes, the protagonist might still look like a rookie. They only know he has a blessing star skill. But they don't know its true grade or his other star skills. So when the time comes, they'll attack unexpectedly and be caught off guard." Zhu Wen explained that based on Gao Junkan's last performance, his overall strength wasn't bad. Maybe he underestimated him before. And that's why the protagonist gained an advantage. The protagonist said that the female assassin in his squad wouldn't be easy to deal with, since she was agile and skilled in ambushes. Nana, being a mage, would definitely be in danger. But she was also their strongest artillery cannon. When her explosive flame hit, she could erase enemies in a single blast. Yiliana looked worried and said, "The problem is, explosive flame takes time to charge and is easy to dodge. And in a group fight, it could even hit teammates when it explodes." The protagonist said, "If we can stop them from moving, it'll definitely hit. At the start of the battle, you should immediately begin charging the explosive flame. When they charge forward, hit the frontmost one marked with health boost." A moment later, the announcer stepped to the center, calling the representatives of Class 2 to prepare to enter the stage. They walked toward the stage, nervous but determined. The spectators were excited for the upcoming clash between the two groups. The referee then announced the next match. Grade 1, Class 1 vs. Grade 1, Class 2. Now, all participants, enter the stage. Meanwhile, at the top section of the audience, where the school officials were watching, a male official asked if that boy was the only medical type awakened in this year's batch of freshmen. What's his star map? He asked. The woman beside him, wearing glasses, replied. They said it looks like a spoon. You could also say it's shaped like a staff. This kid was accepted already possessing existing medical type star skills. This is actually my first time seeing him in person. The man was puzzled about the pre-existing medical type star skills and asked what his surname was. She replied, his surname is Jiang Xiao. He uses his mother's surname, and he's the younger brother of Han Zhongxie. The man was shocked and exclaimed, realizing that he was part of the Han family from the Pioneers' Corps. As expected, like tree, like fruit. Another brilliant seed from the Han family. A 1 in 100 medical type awakened. Quite difficult, but not impossible. I think this one has great potential. But the woman said that this boy was the complete opposite of Han Zhongxie in every aspect. Han Zhongxie was a once-in-a-generation genius with 30 star slots. Jiang Xiao was the same. Except for one thing. His total number of star slots was only 9. And he was the only one in the whole school with that number. The man was shocked to hear it, unable to believe that he had only 9 star slots. The chapter ends here. Watch out for our upcoming uploads. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you'll always be updated on our future videos.